Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. On today's episode, we're going to interview California real estate super agent Scott Walters. In addition to being a real estate expert, he also has a very popular YouTube channel called Scott Walters Realtor USA. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel for free. You can also like, comment, and follow us. Please make sure to tell all your friends about our show. We're going to have a lot of great celebrity interviews coming up, so make sure to click on the notification bell so you can be notified every time we upload a new episode. Now, let's say hello to Scott Walters. Hello, Scott. Welcome to the John Ark Show. How are you today, sir?
I'm great, John. Happy to be here.
It's good to have you. Scott, one of the reasons we invited you on the show is because we haven't seen a real estate market in the U.S. as schizophrenic and problematic as this one since 2008. What are you seeing taking place in the California real estate market?
Well, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, John. What we've seen is complete euphoria in the real estate market. And again, for me, I think one of the things as an active real estate agent, a real estate investor, a landlord in a very euphoric Southern California area like I'm in, it really didn't pass the smell test. And it started to echo a lot of what I saw back in 2008. And so I felt this need to really, for whatever reason, this gravitational pull to start warning many people, just be careful right now. I don't think this is and I think most of my viewers and maybe yours as well can agree this wasn't organic growth. This was stimulated through government stimulus and stimulus programs, and it put us into, and I'm going to say it as a salesman, we're in a bubble. This is a real estate bubble. Most longtime agents I speak to are, absolutely agree 100%. There's other agents that don't know any other market than the one that we're in now. And so a lot of times, as much as we want to wish, this was organic, I just personally feel it's not.
I know an actress named Kelly LeBrock. She used to be married to Steven Seagal. The last time I spoke to Kelly, she lived in Santa Barbara, which I believe is also your area. How is the real estate market doing in the Santa Barbara area these days?
Yeah, well, like you'll hear from most real estate professionals. So what you'll hear a lot of is real estate is local. And, this is this Santa Barbara is in close proximity to Los Angeles, where a lot of actors and celebrities live there within, a couple hours from here. And so one of the things that we get is a lot of celebrities coming up to the area. So we have a pretty good market in terms of dollar amount sales here in Santa Barbara. But John, I'm going to share something with you and your viewers right now. So yes, I work in a massively, massively expensive area. Celebrities all on every corner around here. It's insane. I can't tell you how many multi-million dollar properties that I've set foot on. It's staggering. But one of the things that I do is I always heat map and temperature check the industry through my portals, my systems, my active clients. So to answer your questions, there has been, in the height of the euphoria during lockdowns, when many people were stuck at home, we saw this insane amount of buyers pour into the market, as many of us are, aware of. Then what we've seen now is this shift. We've seen a shift with kind of prices started to level out. They're not growing at the rates we saw them in this kind of cool off period. Now, again, Santa Barbara and coastal communities and any red hot areas will always be the last to get touched in a downturn and the first to rebound, but they are not immune from feeling some economic pain. But to answer your question, John, business is pretty good right now in my area.
Okay. Isn't the Reagan Ranch out there somewhere?
Yep. The Reagan Ranch is a few hours. Mm-hmm.
I heard that they're evacuating the ranch today because of approaching fires. So that's sort of...
That is correct. A lot of smoke in the air. And yes, Reagan moved in here in the 80s when he was president, and it brought a lot of popularity to this area as a result.
So a lot of my celebrity friends, are leaving California for Texas and Florida. Do you believe that the exodus of high-profile celebrities is causing everyday people to rethink their desire to stay in California?
Absolutely, without a doubt, 100%.
So there were a lot of people investing in the multi-unit apartment buildings over the last few years. What is the market like now for buildings with 2 to 16 apartment units in them? Is it still hot, or are buyers pulling back because they've gotten so burned by the eviction moratorium?
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, Santa Barbara is a very unique area, and so most of my clients at this time, yes, I'm dealing. Yeah, I always commercials kind of like the elephant in the room that most people aren't talking about. Most of us can drive down our city streets and see a lot of for lease signs. We see a lot of businesses failing. See a lot of commercial real estate and multi-tenant apartments. I'm starting to get some owners more of the mindset of wanting to go to market because they don't trust the future of our economy and they feel like they can get a premium for their properties right now. I've had a few isolated incidents where it has been non-paying tenants done with being, tenants and toilets and just want to, get out of those investment properties. I think more is to be revealed. One of the catchphrases I say a lot on my channel is, we really need the dust to settle from these fiscal cliffs. And the one that you just mentioned was eviction bans. We need to really, it's ended. So people they won't really believe it until they see blood in the streets. But this is real estate. It's not the stock market. It moves a little slower. And we really need the dust to settle. We need these programs to play all the way out before we can really understand how much impact it's going to have. So I think these coming months through winter, maybe in the beginning of the new year, is when we could see a lot of that rear its ugly head.
I'll tell you a funny Kelly LeBrock story. I was talking to her once, and she said that her ranch was being threatened by approaching fires. And I guess the fire department wasn't equipped to handle a fire this massive headed in her direction. So she's talking to the sheriff, and the sheriff says, "I've got an idea." And he calls the nearby prison, wherever that was, and he asks for volunteers to fight the fire. And everybody says, "No, hell no, we're staying right where we are." So then he says, "Well, this would be to help save Kelly LeBrock's ranch." Suddenly there's a long line of guys who wanted to meet Kelly LeBrock and save her ranch. So, and they actually saved the ranch. So,
Yeah, no, that doesn't surprise me. It's sounds status quo for the area, John.
so where do you see the price of multi-unit apartment buildings going over the next 12 months? Do you see it trending upwards or downwards?
That's a great question, John. One of the things that I currently believe personally is we are at ground zero with the real estate market. It's going to take about a year. Like I said, this isn't the stock market. It's going to have to play out. We will need the dust to settle from stimulus. We will need to pay the piper on this one. We might see, I think, like I said, commercials and real estate's in much bigger trouble than residential. Residential's still strong. I think that the challenge that we're facing now with multi-unit buildings is there's a lot of Wall Street investment companies now that are ready to strike if and when those properties come on the market. I think what would have to happen in order for significant reductions in price to happen in that sector or any real estate sector is going to have to be some form of correction, recession, or depression be produced from the pandemic. And I believe that's a realistic expectation, as well as many economists and experts that are willing to admit it. So for now, John, I don't know. I think, again, in areas like mine, you come to market with your multi-unit apartment building, you're going to get a premium today. What'll happen tomorrow? It's anybody's guess.
I haven't been to Santa Barbara in a long time. Do you guys have a lot of multi-units?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Just like any big area, there is a significant amount of multi-unit buildings. Again, it's not like maybe Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco. It's a very small beach community that experienced extreme wealth during the Reagan era, really put us on the map.
Yeah, yeah. What are the typical qualifications for purchasing a multi-unit apartment building, as far as credit scores, down payments, and income? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the seller and the buyer, and how many people are interested in the property. If I'm the only buyer interested, well, then maybe I can get away with less down or not the credit score or other criteria that might be measured. But if I'm competing, it's going to be whoever has the strongest and best offer. So obviously, all cash offers are king because they have the higher likelihood of actually closing. If I got a pre-approval from a bank and I'm coming in with 20% down and I don't have, significant credit to show, they might give me a pre-approval on amount, but they will finalize the docs, they're going to put me under the microscope and take another look at me before they fund any loans. And those loans can sometimes fall out of escrow because the loan didn't fund. So it just depends, John. If it depends on the climate. Right now, I believe you're going to have to come in smelling like a rose and looking pretty good on paper to make your deal stick. And there's a good chance you're competing with other people. But if you're not, then maybe you have a better chance of getting your deal to stick, not looking quite as good.
A lot of people are being evicted or foreclosed, and as a result, they're going to have their credit nuked. How will all of these people find another place to live if their credit is destroyed?
Yeah, here we are in this city of wealth and prestige. And I know there's a lot of cities right now that are starting to suffer the effects of that. Even here in Santa Barbara, here we're very, we have to call them the unhoused. We can't call them the homeless, but we're seeing homeless camps spring up all over the place. More and more people living in cars, more and more people living, on couches. It's not going to be good. It's just not going to be good. And again, I think what we have to look at is the barometer of what type of area you're in terms of how many people were in. They were non-paying tenants and now being evicted. I think some harder hit areas, like the bigger cities, are probably going to suffer the effects of that quite significantly, while others might not feel any effects at all. But certainly, if you're a non-paying tenant, you've been evicted, and now you have an eviction on your record, poor credit score, and not well employed with good cash reserves, you're basically now on life support, in my opinion. You're going to have a very hard time finding anybody to rent you a property.
Now, in a recent video of yours, you mentioned something called a tenant overview letter, which sounded like a really good idea. Can you tell us about that and how you believe it could help buyers or renters?
No, absolutely, 100%, John. So back in the last crash of 2008, and another thing I say in my channel is not important to own where you live. It's just important to own. And so I found myself needing a rental, and I developed a tenant overview letter because I knew I was competing with a lot of other people applying for rentals. I'm like, what can I do to stand out, to set myself apart from the pack? Because I know as a landlord myself, when I have a unit that's advertised for rent, email after email after email after email, all saying the same vague, inquiry and things. And so I developed a tenant overview letter, which is really just a snapshot of my strengths, a PDF attached document with my name, bullet pointed my strengths. If I have good rent history, if I have good credit, if I have no pets, I'm a smoker, just something that says, hey, what's this? I've never seen a tenant overview letter show up through one of, and so it's just a chance to really lean on your strengths. I always say, anytime you're approaching a landlord or management company, you never want to give any life stories, no hard luck stories, just your strengths. It's like a job interview. You want to come with your qualifications. You don't want to come in there with your hard luck story. Oh, my landlord decided they want to sell a property. We're desperate. We don't know what to do. While we appreciate that and really feel for you, that's not something that we want to take on that burden. So that's where the tenant overview letter was.
I think that's a really good idea, and hopefully more people will take that to heart and try it. Do you think the current real estate bubble will burst more dramatically than it did in 2008?
If it does, in fact, burst, which I believe we are at high crash risk.
I believe it will be. We're at what?
I believe we're at high crash risk
Okay.
right now. You can't have a global shutdown of the economy. It bubbles now created artificially through stimulus, where every asset class has been going, completely euphoric to levels that are unsustainable. So if we do, in fact, it's not if we're going to have a downturn, John, it's when. The real estate industry, like all investment classes, are full of booms and busts. We just had the biggest boom in history. And that's scary. That alone should scare us. We just had the biggest boom, in history, in the middle of a health pandemic, completely produced by government stimulus and stimulus spending that's continuing to occur. So yeah, I think we got to pay close attention to that. I believe that if this market crashes, and I believe we're about a year away from that happening, it could in fact make 2008 look like a war month.
By the way, have you seen the video on social media of what the Chinese are doing now with the Evergrande debacle? All that real estate that was stopped in mid-construction or completed and that remains unoccupied, it's being torn down. They're blowing it up and just raising it to the earth. It's unbelievable. Enormous complexes all being torn down now, never occupied. So,
Wow.
yeah, check out the video. It's very, very interesting to
Is
watch.
there any reasoning? Is there any reasoning why they would undo all this unfinished work in that way?
I think there's just no demand for it, and there never was. You know, just a lot of corrupt spending, a lot of corrupt debt, and there was never any real market for it. And now it's all come home to roost. And so they're just tearing down all these enormous towers of apartment buildings that were never occupied. It's amazing.
Wow.
So, given all the crime and social unrest over the last 2 years, when you show properties to clients these days, how concerned are they about the effectiveness of local law enforcement and whether they can even get a response to a 911 call? Is that a consideration in the Santa Barbara area like it is in some other California towns?
Not really. Not really here. I can say I did show a property not too long ago and looked great online. Again, most of us are shopping online. The pictures were great, newer construction, beautiful, 20 minutes or less from the beach. People were buying a second home, met them at the property. And then we saw some riffraff in the streets right in front of the front door of this property. It was like a condominium complex, a nice newer one, but it was right on this busy street with good agent. If they see something like that, they're going to care for your well-being. They're going to talk you out of property, even if it means delaying a commission and working a little longer to get it. I didn't have any specific, I think like we talked about in this area, there's not so much like, and I think I think in the height of the pandemic, when the civil unrest was taking place, I sold more homes remotely without even seeing people. And now I think that because law enforcement seems to be back out on the job, we see a lot more police presence than we did in the height of the pandemic during the social unrest. So it's not been an issue as of late.
So let's say a buyer has $1 million to work with. What do you think makes better sense from a financial perspective? Purchasing a single family home with that money or using it to put 25% down on a multi-unit apartment building and then living it in one of the apartments and renting the other units out?
No brainer, Sean. That's a no brainer.
Yeah.
The apartment building.
Yeah.
You got to do that. I've always said, and thank you. I know it sounds like you've watched a few of my videos. I would be willing to live in a shoebox temporarily to get into investment properties. You have to sacrifice now so you can be comfortable later. And that's the problem I see with most buyers right now. They're willing to buy at any cost. John, this is the path to wealth. It's not owning your house. It's owning other people's houses. And so I am a way bigger fan of buying that apartment building, live in one of the units for a little while. It's not forever. And build wealth. That's the path to wealth.
So there's a show on TV called $1 Million Listings Los Angeles, in which agents sell $10 to $20 million homes in California. Tell us, and of course it always looks so easy on TV, tell us what the real life challenges are when it comes to selling property in those high price ranges. Are you seeing greater lengths of time to sell expensive homes?
Well, yes and no. First of all, yes, John, I wish that I could sell my $20 million property in the span of 1.5 hour TV show. It's not as easy as $1 million listing paints the picture for it to be. That is completely scripted, almost nonsense, in my opinion, based on my experience of being on property. The challenge with the luxury market is you have a smaller buyer pool for that market. So it's typically going to be harder to sell luxury property because you don't have as many buyers to pull from, right? Now, the middle class has been priced out a little bit. The first time home buyer has been priced out a little bit. But in terms of the big properties, your marketing has to be much more on point than just the standard, condo or some single family home. You're going to, the negotiations, you will not go off the market at euphoric levels over asking price unless you came on the market at euphoric levels under asking price. You're going to get, most people of that level of wealth are going to get into negotiations with you, and you will not sell that property. Typically, there's some cases in this current climate that properties were going off the market at or above asking price, even in the luxury market, but it takes a lot longer than what you're seeing. All right.
When the real estate bubble burst in 2008, I saw the prices on some mansions drop by 80% at foreclosure auctions in the Midwest. If the bubble pops again, do you think we're going to see that level of reduction?
I wouldn't surprise me. I think it's possible, but my gut feeling says no. I don't know if we'll see mansions. I believe it would have to be a catastrophic, full-blown depression that, like I said, 2008 would just resemble a warm-up to what we'd have to see to produce that again. I think that what we've seen is such a shift, such a new abnormal world that we live in, with so much institutional money now in play. The government stimulus, I believe, injected will take a long time for it to thin. I think it's been propped up to the point. I believe we're in big trouble, much bigger trouble than just real estate if we hit that kind of price reductions. Is it possible? Yes. I don't know if we'd see luxury properties at 80% discounts, maybe 50, 40, 50%. If we hit those types of numbers, though, it will be food lines, homeless, chaos, war, you name it. It would, and nothing would surprise me right now. It's definitely possible, but I'm not sure I'm seeing that yet in the forecast.
What percentage of the landlords that you do business with have been so devastated by what they've experienced over the last 2 years that they're selling everything and getting out of the real estate business? Is that the case, or are you seeing more people wanting to get into the business and become landlords?
Yeah, I think it's a healthy mix of each. I think for a lot of landlords that have non-paying tenants and they took mortgage forbearance so they didn't have to pay the bank, so they could weather the storm and bridge the gap until they could get the tenants out or paying rent again, they're not really advertising. This isn't something that, a lot of owners want their neighbors and friends and family to know that they're in this kind of hardship. So these are things I believe that it's really hard to get a temperature check on. Personally, I live in a city full of wealth. I think I'm not seeing as much of that as other cities maybe that were hit harder in this demographic. So far, I've talked to a few agents. Oh yeah, talk about your listing. Yeah, I'm taking another one, and they're selling because their tenant was a non-paying renter, and they decided they're done and they're going to market. So that's kind of what I see in terms of that at the moment. Not a lot to report on in terms of firsthand experience, but I know it's out there.
Who are you selling more single family homes to at this point? Is it individual buyers, or is it hedge funds, banks, and investors?
Yeah, at the moment, it's just more, I think it's almost a healthy mix. I think what I saw was a lot of people enter the market during the height of the euphoria that were just regular people, regular wage earners, maybe dual income, median home price qualified. They were getting beat by, bigger offers that were all cash. So, those were some of the institutional buyers that were able to position themselves to get those homes. I would say now a lot of people have tapped out and are on the sidelines. And I've urged most people to get on the sidelines right now versus maybe, draining your savings account for a minimum down payment to try to get into a home. I just believe that that's not smart right now. I believe you're better off waiting on the sidelines because there's a higher chance prices will level or come down before they continue to go up at the rate we just saw. So yeah, I would say it's kind of a healthy mix, but I see a lot of new listings coming, a lot of more people getting on the sideline of all wealth groups or demographic groups. And so I would say it's been a little 50-50ish, John, in terms of just regular people versus institutional money.
Do you think that the large premiums that some hedge funds were paying for homes, that's cooled off, has flattened out?
I believe so. I believe Evergrande has caused some contagion.
What do you think will get more damaged when the real estate bubble pops? Is it the market for $300,000 homes or the market for $10 million homes?
Well, that's a really good question, John. In the when we first the pandemic first hit, we went into a micro recession, right? Everybody got locked down and everything froze. Every realtor took a big gulp, like I'm done, because we were frozen. We couldn't show homes, we couldn't put homes on the market, we couldn't do anything. And then the government decided to make real estate agents essential workers, and they dropped the interest rates. They knew this was a strategic play to start getting some money moving, and we saw a lot of these measures. Well, in the initial lockdown, in that micro recession, which we can look to the past to predict the future a lot of, we saw the luxury market get hit first because more people were less interested in going and buying second and third homes in a recession. And so what will that's typically what happens, John, in a normal situation of a recession is the luxury market gets hit first, like you said, with those 80% price reductions on luxury. It's because people now aren't going and spending money in that way anymore, buying second and third luxury homes. So that will definitely, the luxury market usually gets hit first in a recession, but unfortunately, every market or every price range will get touched, but we can look to the luxury market sometimes first. But in this crazy world we live in with all this wealth division now, there might still be some people that have, well, we already know that got more wealthy during the pandemic, where the wealthy got wealthier, the poor got poorer. So could we see some fat cats, still willing to spend money? Well, not in a recession. You didn't become rich by overpaying for stuff. You became rich by negotiating shrewd deals. So we'll have to see a downturn for the luxury market to take the hit. It could take a hit, though, because people in a recession will be less interested in going and buying second, third homes, in my opinion.
So, once again, on a recent episode of Million Dollar Listings, Elliot, as you can tell, I enjoy that show because I enjoy the real estate space. Actress Suzanne Summers was trying to sell her 28-acre Palm Springs estate at a dramatic price reduction. Years ago, she was asking more than $30 million for the property, and now she just sold it for $8.5 million. That's a 75% price reduction. Of course, it took several years to get it down to that, but that's quite a drop. Do you think that's more of a function of her property, or is that more of a function of changes in the marketplace?
Well, I got a question with Suzanne Summers' multi-million-dollar Palm Springs property. Was that pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, or pandemic?
Well, no, she's had it on the market for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years already, and it just
So
sold.
got it. So she just sold. So yeah, that's a good indicator, John. And I think what we're seeing, like Palm Springs, I know, they're having some pretty ill effects from the pandemic with a lot of malls and stores going out of business.
Hmm.
And so you got to look at some of these markets. Even here in Santa Barbara today, I was out and I saw big, big, big retailers boarded up windows all over my city, boarded up windows on huge companies. And we're seeing that in Palm Springs as well. So that's kind of some writing on the wall. Again, the old saying, your property's only worth what somebody's willing to pay. And I don't know how many people are racing out to the desert right now to pay for big luxury property when others are now leaving and businesses are boarding up. Who wants to live in that? Not me. Not you, I'm sure. Well, unless you're Suzanne Summers' neighbor, that might be fun. Have some barbecues. Sure. She's gone, so.
So, are most cities in California still allowing owners to Airbnb their homes, or are a lot of cities now restricting that sort of thing?
Yeah, there has been a lot of restrictions. I don't deal with a lot of Airbnb. I've never been a big fan of Airbnb. It's a great way for just normal people maybe to try to scrape up a few bucks if they need it by renting out a room here and there. It's not as attractive as it used to be because it has been governed and mandated a little more now, and it's making it harder on people being able to Airbnb their properties. I primarily see homeowner associations. If you live in a property that has a homeowners association, they're probably restricting you from any Airbnb. You're going to have a minimum of a 30-day rental, in any of those. So yeah, I believe that might be trending out.
What are you seeing with foreign buyers? A few years ago, there was a lot of Russian, Chinese money pouring into New York, California, and Miami. Are you still seeing that, or has that waned?
Well, again, I think because I live in this and basically work in a city that caters to the rich and famous and wealth and well employed. And there's not, like we talked about, huge, skyrise apartment buildings and things like that. I know there's been some talk of a lot of single family homes getting bought up, but they're typically not places like Santa Barbara where the median home price is $1 million. I think it's a real small percentage in a city like mine, these very nichey towns. I think that is something that we're seeing. I know there's data out there that supports that. I don't think it's as staggering as that a lot of times we might see on mainstream media or even some of the other media outlets we watch, but it is occurring. I think we've seen I think because the Evergrande debacle, we're seeing some now bigger institutional companies start to wait on the sidelines too in hopes of the potential crash. And then that's where those all cash buyers are going to beat out those first time home buyers with conventional loans. I think we're starting to see some strategies now be formulated.
You know what they say about Miami? I'm sure you've heard this. They say that 90% of the office towers, the condominium towers, the apartment towers were built by cocaine money.
Mm,
Back in the
yeah,
day. Back in the day.
right.
So, what do you think? Here's an important question. What do you think the best way to make money in real estate will be going forward, whether the market collapses or doesn't collapse? What does your gut tell you?
Well, it just depends on what your goals are. And again, at the end of the day, John, it's all about setting realistic goals and at least having a clear, defined goal. And there's nothing wrong with, reaching high, aim high, but you do want to be realistic. Typically, John, the advice that I typically try to give to my clients, audience, and viewers are stay away from mobile homes and condos. They're horrible investment vehicles. They're great to retire in, great for that. What they're designed for. But you can't add a rental to those properties, and a lot of mobile homes are age restricted, and you don't own the land. It's lease space. Not a good vehicle for investment. Good vehicle to be on a fixed income and retire. HOAs with big HOA fees and unable to do any kind of conversions. So for me, the single family home for the new investor, like I want to be a landlord, I want to invest, I want to put my pinky toe into the investment market. You want to get in to an affordable single family, or I should say affordable, because nothing's affordable right now, but a single family home that has a nice layout to take that garage and turn it into an ADU, an auxiliary dwelling unit, create a studio there where you can supplement your payment or move into that. If you don't have a big family, move into that studio, rent out the main house, and you're living for free now. And then you can save any wealth you're having and try to do that again a couple times over. And that's the best way for the average person to enter into the great, great world of real estate investing.
By the way, you mentioned HOAs. I couldn't understand what you said. Did you say it is better to purchase a single family home with or without an HOA?
Without an HOA.
Right.
No HOA. Again, HOAs are great if you don't want to do any upkeep of the property. A lot of that's included with the HOA fee. It's mainly for the people that either want to retire or they just have a lot of wealth and they don't, the development they happen to get into has an HOA involved. But in terms of the new investor, investment strategy, single family home or duplex, fourplex, multi-unit, like you started the show with, move into one, rent out the others. You want to buy a house that has the ability to have a rental on it. And that at least gets you familiar what it's like to place tenants, to deal with tenants, to be a landlord. It's a great introduction to the business. And then from there you can move up and you'll understand how it works, the dynamic. It'll motivate you to do more of that.
Well, before we go, is there anything that you would like to promote?
No, other than the fact that I really appreciate you inviting me onto the show. I've watched some of your videos, some of your great guests. It was a privilege and an honor to be included today. If any of your viewers are interested, please just simply search Scott Walters, Realtor USA. Come on over, and we're not sugarcoating it, pulling no punches. We're talking about a lot of the hard subjects that I always provide some final thought on what we can do to hopefully position ourselves to be okay in any market. So thanks for having me on, John.
Well, Scott, it's been great having you on the show. You're developing a well-deserved reputation for being extremely honest with your clients, and I suspect that's why your YouTube show is so popular. I want to wish you all the best and tell you that you're always welcome back on the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. I would come anytime.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, we hope that you enjoyed that as much as we did. We're going to have more great celebrity interviews coming up, so make sure you subscribe to our free channel and click on that notification bell so you can get notified every time we post a new episode. Thank you, and we shall see you soon. Goodbye.